2019 appeared the book by Ervin Laszlo and Michael Charles Tobias entitled The Tuscany Dialogues, The Earth, Our Future, and the Scope of Human Consciousness. In the preface to this book, Ervin Laszlo writes,
"Evolving our thinking and our consciousness is a precondition of creating a better world, and dialoguing on the issues that confront us is a key to evolving our thinking and our consciousness. Let the conversation begin. Michael and I are ready to talk to each other, and to all who wish to join us, wherever they may be."
The present series of several short videos is my own contribution to this conversation. You can also contribute through your comments to these videos, or to the book itself on the website of the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research. Our global consciousness contains also your individual consciousness. Let us follow some parts of the dialogue and give our corresponding comments to it.
I believe that there is an underlying evolutionary trend which is towards coherence and complexity, finding expression both in behavior and in thought and spirit. In that sense, humanity is advantaged, because we have developed the ability to infuse consciousness with our actions, and we are able to eliminate and to reassess, if we want to, the past, and are able to predict, or at least to speculate upon, the future, to an extent which is greater than in any other species. It is unique to our species on the Earth.
What if it's not?
What do you mean by that?
What if the consensus of science and of psychology, of research in general, of anecdotal experience that becomes a science in and of itself, what if we were to turn around and look in the mirror in 5 years, 10 years, tomorrow, and see that the unique qualities that we've attributed to our species in fact have been around long before us, among all living beings? I prefer to be non-exclusive if I'm going to start attributing sentience to non-humans. We now know for sure it exists among many species including chimpanzees, bonobos, dolphins, probably blue whales, and perhaps octopuses, which is saying something definitive, considering that nearly 70% of an octopus's neurons are not in its brain but in its arms. The topology of what I term the semiosphere, first applied in 1984 by Uri Lothman, suggests to me a whole new reassessment of life and consciousness that is way overdue. Remember, it was Michel de Montaigne who declared that other species are far more rational than humans. Dendrologists, who study trees, would argue that the redwoods, which have been around for nearly 3,000 years, communicate and are geniuses all their own. They might conclude that their very endurance, size, and volume of life is so finely tuned that something must be happening in terms of communication between and within the trees themselves. So my point is, if we are celebrating out consciousness as being endowed with some special ability, as you are suggesting, what happens if we discover we aren't special at all? And not just not special, but possibly a bit deformed? I mean, what other species would knowingly destroy the Aral Sea or ignore lead in a Michigan city's drinking water? Or, of that matter, kill most of the indigenous Native Americans in a place called Yosemite just 17 years before John Muir himself arrived in that emptied-out wilderness and called it sublime, like Semicon, ignoring the fact that Native Americans in Yosemite had been murdered, bled out, so to speak, like sheep in a slaughterhouse. What other species would do all that? And ultimately, what happens if we discover that our perception is no different than those who are perceiving us among other species? What if we truly discover, as Nietzsche did with his concept of God, that man, too, is dead?
Then they are just proving the point that you are making. I believe that we can discover or rediscover that humans have an ability that is practically unique at this point of evolution on Earth.
Well, we could use it, we could be empowered by it, certainly enlightened by it. But I do wonder if it would help us out of our logjam of emotional and cognitive stubbornness. Most people find it difficult to relinquish the idea of their personal superiority.
In my opinion, We have to distinguish between potential and actualization of the potential and see how we can assess the various forms of life and expressions of life, ranging them along a spectrum that goes from the built-in potential, which is here in the single-celled organism, in the primordial hydrogen atom, to its fuller expression and unfolding. Is this potential, which we call mind or consciousness, really a side effect? An epiphenomenon? Is consciousness something produced on the side, in the course of producing something else? Or is consciousness an expression of something fundamental, a potential residing in the cosmos? This is the basic question. It's a core question. How do you look at the world? As something which is just one done thing after the other? I think we have now seen that the probabilities of a universe even remotely ordered such as ours coming about via random processes is astronomically small. So there is something happening that gives a vector, a direction, a directionality of change. Could it be that this directionality is the consciousness element?
The answer is no and yes. There is no such a directionality being active across the entire universe. But there is a directionality in the evolution of life on our Earth. The problem in your thinking, dear Ervin, is that you, as almost all scientists today, do generalize our observations and experiences from the directly visible, very small part of our solar system, including only Earth, Moon, and Sun, onto the entire universe, extending itself above the presently accepted limit of 43 milliard light-years. It is a serious mistake. You are right in your main point. A primordial potential to create the most primitive forms of life is given everywhere in this huge universe. But the actualization of that potential to the higher developed life forms is probably given only on Earth. How could it be true? And still more important, why? It is impossible to have a single planet in an imaginary small universe. It is also impossible to have a single planetary system around a star without any other stars. It is because the dimensional extension of any quantum in our universe is always and inseparably connected with the quantum temporal duration or the quantum period. In order to guarantee a planetary system the necessary time long enough for it to develop itself in a natural way, that means along a period of time of many milliards of years, we have to assume an existence of not only our chosen system, but also of the whole cosmic hierarchy of similar quantum systems with their natural quantum periods lasting at least those long milliards of years. This general cosmic condition has still nothing to do with the evolution of life on any of the possible planets of the cosmic hierarchy. However, we understand now that the evolution of higher forms of life on a chosen planet is only possible after the geophysical evolution of the chosen planetary system within its entire cosmic hierarchy has been successfully closed. In summary, let us stress it once more. If a potential process of evolution to the higher forms of life, which needs many millions of years, should become a realistic process someday and somewhere in a universe, this universe has previously to develop the correspondingly large quanta with correspondingly long periods. It is a necessary condition, but it is in no way a sufficient condition for the evolution of human beings. There is no directionality in the evolution till that point. However, if some accidental cosmic event will happen, in which a planet, existing till then near the habitable zone of its own star, will be pushed toward the central orbit of that habitable zone, the looked-for directionality of the evolution can emerge, the evolution to the higher forms of life could start. But, there are many necessary preconditions for the evolution process to be successful. The movement of the lucky, pushed planet should be not too quick, because every single step of the evolution needs its own time to come across the cosmic jumps, boundaries between the steps. Practically it means, a correspondingly large part of any lower developed species prior to the jump has to survive across the jump, in order to give a safe life to the necessary large group of individuals of the higher developed species after the cosmic jump. the probability to survive is strongly dependent on the hierarchical range of the cosmic jump. There are always such high-level jumps that the further evolution has no chance to be continued. In the case of our Earth, we were very lucky to be pushed with a moderate energy, which has not destroyed the Earth, which has delivered our relatively big moon, and has moved the Earth from her orbit with the average temperature of about -30 degrees Celsius 3.5 million years ago to the present temperature of about +8 degrees Celsius. Exactly this continuous rising of the average Earth's temperature gave the directionality of the evolution of life on Earth. But only on Earth, and nowhere else in our observable universe. What we experience on Earth cannot be transferred onto any other part of our universe. Our unified physics definition of consciousness will be given in one of the next videos of this series. So, please join us on the next Fridays again.